All right, here we are working on a Stanley door operator that needs some fresh mounts. So before I started on this job, I got myself a couple barricades and I have those set up, not quite yet, but I'm getting this cover off first. There's 4 screws that hold this on, so you want to pull those guys down first. And you're going to see me look around. What I'm watching for is a break in customers. I'm not going to shut down these doors, lock these doors. People are just going to ask why it's locked. I'm going to watch for a break. I'm going to hold that panel up there. It's not going anywhere. I've looked around. I know nobody's coming. So I'm going to pull this panel down and I'm going to get it out of the way. As soon as it's out of the way, all of our risk is out of the way, and we can let customers use our doors. I have the opposite door propped open while I'm servicing this door. You can see that that door operator is actually going pretty crazy there. So we're going to get this door propped open and get that arm off. Now, the first plate is a cover plate. That plate just comes right off. The arm should stay on. If the arm falls off, you got a different problem, but that should pop right off. And then we're going to get our larger Allen wrench and we're going to pull that arm off. So keep in mind that as soon as I start loosening that spline, you got to have control of that arm because that arm can fall right off and that'll get you in the head. And that's also why you want to have a barricade up. If you don't have a barricade up, you can have some pretty ugly situations when you lose control of either the door or that arm. So you'll see I'm controlling the door with my left hand, struggling. That's how it usually goes. All right, now it's going to be free. So once that arm is free, we're going to just kind of push them off to the side. And the next thing I really want to focus on is getting that door secured so it's not going to go anywhere. And the best way to handle that, traffic cone, some sort of tool. I happen to be working on a few other doors at this site, so I got a design hardware 416 I can set down. Get the power off on this unit, no reason to work on it live. Disconnect our encoder off encoder number 2. We're going to grab our speed controller, and on there we've got our general speed, and we've got our power, so we need to get those two things disconnected, and then we can tuck him up out of the way. So now, door closer is technically totally free and ready to come down. We got 4 screws to take out. You can use an impact for this, no problem at all. But what I would recommend is first start with a number 3 screwdriver, just so you know you're not going to strip these guys out. They're a pain to have to drill out, so it's a lot easier if you can get them to break free. Do it that way. All right, so now we've got to take this door operator down. Now the key thing is, with the mounts being as loose as they are, there's a bottom plate on there, and you want to make sure you secure that bottom plate and pinch it tight to that door closer. You don't want to pull that door closer down and then have in your hands or have that plate fall on the floor. So we're set up now to get this bottom plate off. Number 3 on my impact, pop those right out. If you have to drill them, it's not the end of the world. At least you're down on the floor and not up in the air at this case. All right, and they're loosening up nice and easy, which is nice. Not always going to be the case. Sometimes they're going to be really tight. All right, once those are off, check your mounts. They might just come out. Sometimes you get lucky, or they break. And that's most likely what you're going to find. So in this case, I have some extractors, some screw extractors. Number 2 fits right in and can thread those out if they're whole. And then when we get to the units that are broken off, we're actually going to use a 0 and a small drill bit. So you'll see that in a second. It goes really quick, nice and simple. Once you get them out, you're off to the races. So there's our 0 extractor. I have no idea what drill bit that is, to be honest. I could look it up, but get one that's a little bit smaller than your extractor. You want it to bite, but at the same time, you need it to actually fit too. So here, we're going to drill through, making sure we're not wobbling all over the place and cutting into any of the threads. With a screw extractor, there's a couple different ways to use them. Key thing is you need it to bite. So I'm going to take my linesman, give it a couple taps, and get it to start biting in that aluminum, or I guess it's steel in this case, and you'll see it starts to grip and pulls it right out. Now, conveniently, the next one, when I go to drill it, actually isn't going to require me to use a screw extractor, which is pretty handy. That's not the case every time. Sometimes these are really stuck and you might have to get after them. But in this case, this is why you try drilling it first. I'm going to hit it with this drill bit and it's going to loosen right away. And man, I'll tell you what, that's a good feeling, because back it right out and you're on your way. So I will mention something. As you see the mess that I'm acquiring on the floor here, you'll see I'm just dumping stuff all over the floor. Make sure when you're done, and that's not something I'm going to mention at the end, make sure when you're done, you clean up after yourself. Don't leave the mess for the store. It doesn't take long. Bring your vacuum in. You can vacuum it up really quick. All right, so we got our new bottom plate in. We've got the 4 new bolts we're going to install. So instead of the rubber mounts, we're going to go with hard mount. That shouldn't affect it in any way. Tighten those screws up. Number 3s, you can impact them, but remember, just don't go crazy. All right, door closer back up, and we're basically doing the reverse of what we did last time. We're going to get that guy back up there. Once again, make sure you're barricaded off. You don't need anybody underneath you. Make sure you don't have any little kids going underneath where you're working. Get your screws in, and then we need to get everything plugged back in. Reverse order of what we did. We have our 12 pin, or actually I think it's a 10 pin, and we've got our J2 plug, which is our power to the unit, and then we have our encoder 2. So I'm going to show you what we got going on here. We're going to plug in J2 first. That's our power. If you plug it in the J1 slot, you'll find the door opens the opposite direction. So if you ever get to that point and feel like something's a little weird, don't worry about it. You might just have the cable plugged in the wrong spot. So there we go. Speed controller, back up and ready to go. Encoder plug over to our controller. Now technically, once we get that plugged in, we're ready to go. However, we got to get everything tucked up nice and neat. Get our power turned back on. And the first thing we're going to do is throw this door to hold open. And the reason we're doing that is when we set this door, we know there's a definite open spot. But when we close it, we're not quite sure where that close is going to be. So it's easier just to open the door to 100%. That's where we want it to stop. So once that spline stops, we're going to take our door arm and we're going to actually put it right on there. Now with it, when you put it first on there, it's actually going to be a little bit loose, which is perfect. We're going to pop it up. And once it goes, you can slide it all the way to the top, and you're going to take that cover plate and cover bolt, and you're just going to start it. I usually go about 2 turns, sometimes 3. Really depends on the height that you can put that arm at, and pulling that arm right back down to it. The next step is important. We know the door closer's at 100%. Now the door has to be at 100%. We're going to slide around, open that door back up to 100%. Perfect. And now we're going to tighten that arm onto that spline. Now, of course, anytime you are actually filming yourself, nothing goes as planned. So as you can see, I'm struggling with my Allen wrench. Nobody's perfect. Once it's nice and tight, remember that's what's holding the door. You can see I give it a good wiggle, make sure I'm good and tight. Everything's nice and tight. Tighten up that cover plate. That way it doesn't come off. And now we are at 100%. Now I will point out a couple things as we're wrapping this up. Yeah, there's some wires hanging out. That was actually our door beeper, so I took care of that while I'm on site. And then the other thing is, you'll see where that bolt had carved a hole. We do carry those parts in our warehouse now. It isn't a part that has to be ordered, but you can get that on your truck, get that part replaced for the store. It really cleans up how the door looks. And now that we have solid mounts in place, the rubber one, it won't fail, and you won't end up with that groove again. Test your push button, make sure that's working. This is a battery operated one, so that's a really good idea. If it's not working, people can't use it. Door opens to 100%. Life's good. Last couple things you want to check. You're already on site. Make sure all your other doors are closing good. Make sure your locks are locking. And just like that, that is success. Have a good one.